thought, but I didn't know if that was still good. 4 months down the road.
Were you the winning team?
All right.
But,
Okay, yeah.
Wednesday.
If I ever wanted to sell.
If you would ever be in a
Council, if you'd turn on your mics.
Jeremy.
Good evening. Welcome to the Winter City Council meeting for Monday, February 5th, 2024. This time, the City of Winter will implement roll call.
Councilman Clay?
Here.
Councilman Hockett?
Here.
Councilman Clunt?
Here.
Councilman Schramm?
Here.
Councilman Schuyler?
Present.
Councilman Sprinkle?
Here. If you'd please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, having had an opportunity to review the agenda, are there any conflict of interest? Hearing and seeing none, Chair will move on to this evening's consent agenda. Council, do you have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second. Do we know the name of the resignation?
Yeah, sure.
Floor is open to comment, questions, point of information, if you would, please, for Councilman Schramm.
For the public and for the council, the resignation is for Brian Remmers in the police department.
Council, any other comment or question? Hearing none, Chair will call the question, which is approving the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, and this motion carries. Council, having had a chance to review your packets, is there a motion on this evening's agenda?
We'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Clunt with the motion, Councilman Schuyler with the second of the motion. Floor is open to comment or question. Hearing none, Chair calls the question, which is approving the agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, and this motion passes. City of Winter is now moving on to recognition of visitors and public communications. As with all city council meeting, there is a 10-minute window for anybody to address the City of Winter Council. If there is more than one individual, you'd be limited to 2 minutes, or if there's a group and has a group speaker, that speaker could take all 10 minutes. Is there any public input? Hearing and seeing none, City of Winter will move on to our first recognized visitor for the evening, and that is from the Tripp County Library, Mrs. Misty Burns. Sorry about that. The podium is yours, ma'am.
All right. Biggest challenge in doing this is keeping it short and sweet, because I have plenty of things I could talk about. But I did make out, can you hear me? Can't tell if this is on.
So it's on for the camera, not on for
Oh.
in here.
Okay. Thought it might be best just to give the highlights listed it out so that you can see what all has been happening.
Too late.
I'm taking up half my time just getting organized. I'm going to pass these around and talking about pieces.
Does your computer have a bigger font?
I had to get it all on one page.
Thank you.
So So thank you for this opportunity, for thanking you for your past support, and then also to just recognize that without your donation and support, we couldn't do all these things that we do at the library. And the community feels fortunate for the things that we do offer. You know, we do hear the feedback that my kids think your library is so awesome. We have the coolest library, and they appreciate the materials that we have, and they appreciate the programs that we have. And so it's nice to be recognized in that respect, that we do have patrons of our community and others who we run into on a regular basis that give us that positive feedback. So just to let you know that it is something that the community does recognize and appreciate. The highlights, figured that the best way to do this would be to give you the highlight of the highlights. And the one thing that we did add this year was a game night. We had some patrons step up and say, hey, we would love to start doing this at the library. And so that's another thing that's really beautiful about the library, is that we have a lot of people that want to get involved and bring things to the table, because we, as a staff, cannot do it all. And so we have a family that they bring their games in on game night, and of course, we're there, and there is library representation there. And then we're able to have games for whoever wants to get in on the fun. From 6 to 8, we have another game night this Thursday night, and we try to do that once a month. And the people that are gamers bring in some really fun, unique games that you probably don't see on a regular basis. So it's an opportunity for kids to learn and see that, but also it's for singles, couples, families, whoever wants to come and have a good time. Also, the flyer that I handed out, the Baby Taught in Me program, that is being led by Katie Noguchi, and she does a fantastic job. I really feel like the library is an area where we can develop that early learning skill for our children in our community and really help step that up so that they can have that school success later. It's modeled on how to build those skills, and there's a sensory table, there's a felt board for the finger plays, and I can't emphasize that enough, just how important it is to get the children in the library at that early age. We have it set up where for 0 to 4-year-olds, they bring in a parent or a grandparent or a caregiver can come in and then go through that process. And then if there are any kind of developmental delays, those will be caught, and we are able to then direct them to those resources that would be good for those children and so needed. Another highlight is the book that's being passed around. We have 2 ladies that are just very, very talented. They're on our teen advisory board, Addie Heenan and Amanda Edwards. And when I asked them if they'd be open to doing some kind of painting project in the Storytime area, I don't know if they really knew what all they were getting themselves into, but they said yes and did just a fantastic job, blew us away with what they came up with, and they did everything on their own, from the design on the paper to, we came up with the projector, got that image on the wall, and so what you see is the final product of that. One of the moms had the book put together, and so to see the before and after is really exciting, and I encourage you to come take a look if you haven't stopped in the library to see what that looks like, because it is phenomenal with what they did. And there was a lot of work that went into that as far as the process, the journey, connecting them with the USD arts professor who does art murals. So I'll try to keep it shorter. I'm getting long. We are open till 7 o'clock on Thursdays. That's been another thing that people have appreciated, so that they can come on the nights that they can't make it in during that day. And then also Story Time with Sharon Schramm, that's posted on Facebook the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of every month. She was recognized at the South Dakota State Library Association Conference for receiving the most growth in recorded program views. Also, the South Dakota Humanities Council each year chooses a librarian for the Distinguished Librarian Award, and I know that the community really embraced that honor when I received that, and I will say that it took a lot of hard work, but it was an honor that I cherish forever, because there's just so much good that goes into the humanities and all those programs that we do. So that was just a high distinguished honor that I am very thrilled that we received. We were able to have an open house then at that point, the Friends of the Library through that, and we were able to highlight all those different programs. And people could come in, take a look, see all the different pictures, see all that is happening beyond what you're seeing being passed around to you tonight. And with that, in order for us to continue to serve in that capacity, we do need the donation from the city. The $12,500 would be fantastic if we could get that again this year, and a heartfelt thank you for the support in the past, and we thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Great.
So, I came and saw you last year, I think, and I wrote you a check, but I don't remember, was that a one-time, or is that an annual thing, or what is that?
Yep, okay.
I can't remember.
Yep, so that's the Friends of the Library, and a letter gets sent out by the Friends of the Library asking for membership support. And so they have it set up where it's $100 for a lifetime, and the lifetime, once you've paid that, it's paid. But they do continue to send out letters with updates, and then they note that on there, if you are a lifetime member, you do not need, your donation was enough. If you want to continue, obviously, that's great too, but you fulfilled that. And then there's, of course, a business level at 50, and a family at 20, and then an individual at 10.
So could other councilmen donate to the library, Friends of the Library also?
They sure could on an
Oh,
individual level, you bet.
Okay.
I was just curious. Challenge?
And-
Yeah, kinda.
Thank you.
But I do appreciate the question, because sometimes people do get confused, like, well, what is the Friends of the Library? And the Friends of the Library operates differently than our Board of Trustees. The Friends of the Library is a group of the volunteers that come in, they believe in what the library does, and they steer, we have a steering committee that helps the library out. Typically, we'll have monthly meetings, we don't meet in the summer, and we don't meet the month of December, but then I'll go and say, hey, we really could use X, Y, Z. And then they would say, okay, well, we can do that for you. And then they are the ones that are coming in and helping out with the book sale and that kind of thing. So it's really them coming in and supporting and trying to drive some funds. But it's a whole separate program
Okay.
aside from the library. Does that answer the
Yep,
question?
thank you.
Yeah.
Misty, I've got one question. I've
Okay.
been out of kids for a lot of years. In looking at all this, this is for the constituents out there watching that probably never go to the library. Are you, what would you say would be do we have an appropriate attendance level for all these highlights that you have? In your assessment, I guess that's my question.
Yep.
Do we have some pretty good attendance out there?
I think we do. Certainly, there might be some where all of a sudden, if the weather,
Oh,
goes
sure.
bad or
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like that. But like on our Baby Tots and Me, we started up the new session this last Thursday, and there were 26. And and some of the moms that are regulars, like there's a couple of the moms that are nurses, so they're like, oh, we can't go to that one because we work that day, and we just say, come when you can. But now 26 in attendance isn't 26 babies. So it'd be like the 13 babies and then the 13 parents. Yep. And
Still,
so,
that's-
and we pack it, and in fact, that last time in September when we did the first session, I was gone at the SDLA conference, and Katie texts me and says, oh boy, that was a lot. We might have to relook at doing this, because we had so many that it was almost overwhelming, and so we split it into two. So it's trying to figure that out. Like when we do our big final summer reading program show, a lot of times we like to collaborate with people in the community, and we'll do that with like the community playhouse, because we can really accommodate a lot of people from the community. And at the last one, we had 148 in attendance, and oftentimes we'll have to put a few chairs in the row in the front there so that we can accommodate more people. So it's something, and not all of those people participate in the summer reading program. I will be forthright in that, but we want people to feel comfortable to come into the library, and kids see that, and they think, wow, the library brought this to our community, and then we get interest that way. So we just really want the kids to embrace the fun of learning, and it looks different in different, kinds of ways.
Thank you for addressing that.
You bet. And if you want me to, we do keep track of attendance because we do, because that's a whole
I just
nother
wanted
thing
to
that I
know
have to
that's
submit to the state.
Viability of this. That's what, all I wanted was your
Okay,
assessment.
sure.
You don't have to keep numbers.
We do keep track because we do have to submit it, but then it's hard because I know that a lot of it is, do I come in and bore with numbers, or do I show you, here's the feedback we're getting and show the pictures and the stories, the impact that way.
Joe, keep roll call.
Sorry. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Council, at this time, I'd move to suspend the rules and move to new business item number 2.
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to donate $12,500 to the Tripp County Library.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Clay with the motion, Councilman Hockett at the second of the motion. Floor is open to any further comments or questions.
There's not roll call listed. Does there need to be? That does not. Okay.
You can request it if you'd like. Hearing no further comment or question, Chair will call the question, which is approving a donation of $12,500 to the Tripp County Library. All in favor, council, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, this motion carries. Suspending the rules and moving back to recognition of visitors. Our second scheduled guest for this evening is Winter Resource Director Shauna Blackwitz.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you on behalf of the Winter Resource Center. This is our formal request for funding of $7,000, the same as last year. I've spoken with many of you and have been here before on the great work that we do at the Winter Resource Center. I'm extremely proud of this organization and the impact that it makes in the community on an annual basis. As you know, we are a nonprofit organization, and our sole mission is providing crisis intervention and support services to individuals and families who have been affected by domestic violence, sexual assault, child and elder abuse, stalking, and human trafficking. These are all violent crimes that our rural communities are not immune to. It happens across the state of South Dakota and also right here in our hometowns. Our services include operating a 24/7 crisis hotline for domestic violence and sexual assault victims and survivors to get immediate access to speaking with myself or another advocate if they're in a situation where they need to flee, find temporary shelter, or if they're just wanting to ask a question or something like that. In addition, we provide temporary shelter, legal advocacy through the court system, protection orders, financial assistance programs, education and prevention programs in the community to our youth groups and organizations in Tripp County. In 2023, our VOCA Victims of Crime grant funds was severely cut. It was cut by 31%, which impacted our organization by a negative $23,802.70. As a result of this funding cut, we eliminated a part-time staff position, and further cuts were made to our operations. But through our diligence and conservative practices in our organization, we are able to maintain all of our services to the victims that we serve with the emergency shelter and support services with the 2 staff that we have. This work is hard and it can be very draining, but our staff is trained and committed to continue to provide the high level of services as we always have at the funding levels that we've had before. Through our donations and fundraising, we have been able to bridge the funding gap to continue to provide these emergency services and support services. This year, we are faced with an additional possible funding cut at the federal level through the VOCA grant again, and that is estimated to be cut at roughly 40%. This is another hit that I don't know how we're going to make it through. But we will try. With these projected cuts, we could see a reduction in services and financial assistance to the victims and survivors that we serve. What that looks like, we won't know until the grants are awarded approximately in June or July of this year. But the funding that we are writing for and the donation requests that we're requesting from you is extremely important now more than ever. The City of Winter's contribution is essential in the continuation of our services to crime victims and is prorated at 5% of our agency budget. So we currently manage 5 victim services grants. We are 70% grant funded, and with the other revenue obtained through the other grants, fundraising, and donations, along with our grant funded match, is comprised of cash and also in-kind volunteer crisis hotline hours. Our volunteer crisis hotline advocates donate an average of 6,000 hours per year, and that's 3 staff. At this time, I thank you for your ongoing support of our organization and the work that we do. It is extremely essential to continue this work in Winter and Tripp County. If anyone has any questions, I will take those at this time.
Council, any questions?
I don't have a question, I got a statement.
Okay?
Thank you. Thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, no further comment or question. The Chair would move to suspend the rules and move to new business item number 3. Council, do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we fund the Winter Resource Center the $7,000, which they are requesting.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Mayor. Why?
Ronnie?
I gotta get quicker.
With the motion, Councilman Clay with second. Floor is open to comments or questions from council. Or point of information. Hearing none, Chair calls the question of donating $7,000 to the Winter Resource Center. Council, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, this motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, are these donations contingent on the fact that they stay to the completion of the entire meeting today?
No, they're not.
Oh, okay. Just a question.
Chair moves to suspend the rules and introduce you to our final guest this evening. Our next speaker is the Winter Area Chamber of Commerce and South Central Economic Development, Mike Scott.
Well, thank you for having me tonight, and the girls did a great job. I guess I'm, first of all, here on behalf of the Winter Chamber of Commerce, and we have 170 businesses that are chamber members that I'm representing. And I just a couple of things. You know, I guess myself, I've been the director for 4 years now, and just at 4 years. We're seeing a lot of momentum, continued growth in our events that we had from our barbecue pit row, our events during the summer with our different things with our ranch bronc, different things. So we've really had a lot of success, I believe, and a lot of positive momentum. I did hand out to you just a flyer that we had in our annual banquet, just showing pictures and also overall the things that we've been involved with this year, a wide range of things, everything from events to promotions to a lot of hunting, promoting with hunting, work with individuals that come to the community, a lot of different things, from Ag Week, we did all sorts of different promotions, been really involved. One thing I would like just to touch on a little bit is our last 60 days. I'm really quite proud of our businesses and what we've been able to accomplish over a 60-day period. A lot of bests that we've done. Go back to, first of all, putting lights on the lights poles downtown. This old fat guy had to crawl up 28 ladders to wrap lights on the poles. They looked very nice. Then our big event we started was November 25th. That is our Pictures with Santa Claus. I don't know if any of you have ever attended that. Very cold time this year. We have Santa Claus, wagon rides, reindeer, s'mores, face painting. It was a very cold day. We had well over 300 kids sit on Santa Claus' lap this year. Very well attended. I think Santa Claus said it's the largest turnout we've ever had for our Santa Claus event. So it went over really well. So we're really affecting a lot of local people by having good events like that. That same day, it was a very busy day for us. We had the Parade of Lights. I don't know if you were all able to attend this year. Our largest parade that we've had in 12 years. It started from the fire hall to the high school. There wasn't a parking place to be had. And a lot of people, even though it was cold, was on the streets watching. I did an estimate on the parking spots and an estimate per vehicle. Probably estimate we had 1,200 to 1,500 people watch the Parade of Lights on that day. It was a very good turnout. A lot of effort involved in getting people to participate, but we had a great turnout this year. This was our 19th year that we've had that, so we've had a really good turnout for the Parade of Lights. Ladies' Night was another event that we had. It's something I've been working on. It's been about our third year of really putting an effort into it. Once again, a tremendous turnout. Downtown was full. Businesses were happy. I like that event because everybody's having fun. The businesses, their sales were great, and ultimately sales tax revenue comes back to the city through different events like that. So very well attended. Once again, the Main Street was packed. The outlining businesses had a very good night as well, and it's a fun event for the community and ultimately does business for our members and ultimately sales tax for our city. Next up in December was our Sharpshooter Bird and Clay Classic. I hope all of you are familiar with that. I have to compliment Councilman Clay to bring his talents to help on Friday nights. He's helped the last couple of years with that. If you're not familiar with the Sharpshooter Bird and Clay Classic, it's a team pheasant hunt, 6 people. When I started 4 years ago, we were at 11 teams. This year we had 19 teams. We had 114 participants. 65% of those people were from out of the Winter area. Probably 85 to 100 volunteers to put the event on, a 2-day event. It's just been growing very much. But it's been a real positive for the community. A lot of work involved, but very much a positive for our community. I know just on sales tax, just what the chamber spends on putting it on is probably $1,400 or the 2% for the city. So it takes a lot to put it on, but we have the other thing I guess with Sharpshooter, we get we're getting more and more out-of-town teams. One of my teams is from Missouri. They work for, they've been coming 3 years. This year they brought a film crew, and they actually came out and filmed on Friday, but they also filmed our event Friday and Saturday for Sharpshooter, and that will be put on Bird Dog TV. It should be airing in April, and that's just something they wanted to do to come out and help support our community and help support our Sharpshooter because they like it that much. So really think the Sharpshooter, we're definitely, we'll be full this year, and we'll have a waiting list again, and it's been quite a few years since we've been able to do that. Probably the other thing that I just wanted to touch on, this is kind of, to me, I count all these things every year and kind of excited about it. This is our holiday promotion, AKA the Green Sheets. I don't know if you're all familiar. I know Mr. Clay never did one, and then finally did one sheet, and he was one of our winners. Out of one sheet, we needed to throw it back, but I didn't. But what it is you go to Chamber Businesses, for every $20 it gets marked. There's $300 per page. Once you do that, you sign it and put it in a box, and we have weekly drawings. A couple years ago, we upped the prizes to $5,000 worth of winter cash with different prize levels over a 4-week period. I count them every year, and they were counted before me. We had 1,000 sheets more than we had 4 years ago. We were up 15% over last year. Just based off of the green sheets that returned, we were just shy of $1 million with participation in the holiday green sheet promotion, which I thought was outstanding. So I really compliment all my chamber members and everybody that shops local, because it is a huge impact. The last thing I wanted to touch on just recently is our annual banquet. Thank you to Councilman Sprinkle and Councilman Clay and Chandra for attending. It was a very well-attended event. It's a chamber event, but it's a community event, because we have community awards. It was probably one of the largest, since I've done it, it's my largest banquet, and would probably been one of the largest ones we've ever had if we didn't have bad weather. We had over 20 people that didn't come, that had tickets because of the cold weather. But very well, I think it's a good community celebration that we can celebrate individuals that got these particular awards throughout the community. So thank you guys for attending. As you can see, we've been very busy. We actually have a lot planned, more in the same for 2024. Have a couple of new things I'm working on. We're working on a Women in Business event. That should be a really fun event to work with. And then also I'm working on a Shop Local with Winter Cash promotion. I think this is something, another way to help get winter cash in the hands that can be spent on a shop local basis. And I really think once we get into this, it's going to be a really successful promotion, and we'll do this leading into the Christmas season. So we do have, a lot of good things planned for 2024. Barbecue is going to be bigger. Sharpshooter is going to be bigger. We're looking at our summer nights as doing one big summer nights this year to really grow on that. So we have a lot of good things going. I guess strong chamber hopefully shows strong community, and strong businesses create sales, and sales is sales tax. So we're trying to work that all together. I'd like to, end with thanking you for your past contributions to the Chamber of Commerce and seeing the importance in the community. What we're requesting is $25,000, same as we had last year, to help support the chamber. Thank you. South Central, okay. All right. Next up is South Central Development Corporation. I'm here on behalf as the director of that, and I have 9 board members on that we're involved with South Central, plus our shareholders. Just kind of a recap for you guys. 3 years ago, we made a decision with limited funds. It's hard to do everything, and so what we did is we narrowed our focus to business creation, business development, selected employee recruitment, and downtown revitalization. Those were kind of our focuses that we wanted to put our energies into. With that being said, just kind of give you a little bit of what our last 3 years has been, as well as we really have off to a good start for 2024. The last 3 years, South Central has been involved with 5 new businesses that's been in winter. We've been involved with 2 businesses that been longtime businesses that their owners retired. We were very involved with the new ownership of both of those businesses to make sure that they stayed with local, and also at the same time stayed in winter. We were very involved with those there. One of the positions of need that we said is attorneys, so we were involved with the Rural Attorney Program. We helped out with recruiting, and then we have a 3-year commitment, 3 or 4 year commitment, I think it's 3, to help them with the rural attorney to help finance that, and we did get somebody hired, Mason Jurasik. I talked to him today, doing really well, married, got a small baby. We're actually working on our second person right now, so we're shooting for 2 on new attorneys. The other thing that we did was we acquired the Covey Law Office. We went in, that was completely gutted. We went in and remodeled that, and we end up selling it, and now it's got a business in it, so we feel really positive about putting a new business back on Main Street, and then it's actually filled with a business as well. One of the things that we do with South Central is we do have a loan portfolio. Based off the end of the year, our loan portfolio was up 27%, which is really a nice jump with loan portfolio. Just a couple businesses I wanted to highlight as one that we were involved with. We started about 3+ years ago working and recruiting and doing some other help with Ag Storm, the old Runnings. He hasn't got the outside completed yet, but the inside is amazing what he's done. This is probably one of the fastest growing businesses in our area. When we got him here, he I think went from 1 employee now to 7. He had, I don't believe, any dealerships he was working with at that time. He's working with over 350 dealerships. Sales growth has been tremendous, and I just am really excited to see the upside that what he's going to be able to continue to bring to that company and for winter. The other one that we put a need of focus was daycare. You know, I know we've worked with the city on some possible ideas. We've looked at different things, so we really see that as a need. We had a private individual that wanted to expand, so we were completely supportive of her, and they were able to get the deal done. And you know, she was able to take advantage of some grants, and then also working with South Central. I have to say, and I know if Carrie was here, she would tell you too, without South Central, she wouldn't have been able to do it. So we're really happy to be able to support her. When she's at peak capacity, she's going to have 7 new employees and be able to handle up to 40 kids with the daycare. Excuse me. But I'm going to find $1 for that, like Rotary.
20 here.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeremy. You know, the daycare, it's been really good to get that off and going. And like I mentioned before, you know, we're involved with the new attorney, and also we're involved with the new optometrist in town. Both of that's kind of neat because they're young people moving here, married with small children, which I think is great. Outstanding businesses, professionals that we've been able to assist. The other thing that we've been able to do with South Central is a facade grant, working with businesses to help them with their storefronts. That could be painting, windows, it could be signage. And we've helped 9 businesses, and I think the most recent, if you've seen the Winter Bakery awning that he's done there, I think it looks great. I've been working with Scott and Dory a couple years on that, and we got it done. It looks really nice. I have 2 other businesses that I'm working with right now on Main Street that will hopefully be able to get something done this spring or summer, just to keep helping that overall look of our Main Street. Currently, like I said, we're off to a good start for 2024. I'm currently working with 5 different businesses right now. And 3 of them I'm feeling really good about. You know, the one company that I've mentioned several times over the last few years we're still working with is Cornboard. He was just here last week, got 1 more investor. He's going to be here hopefully in 2 weeks. If we get 2 more investors, we're going to be in the next phase of it to try to go out and start looking for, you know, just meeting with the shareholders, I think, and get the property and hopefully talked to Lane again last week, and you know, if everything goes right, we might be able to even announce something this spring about where we're at with the process. So really excited about that. We've got another business that I've been working with. I've had it here a couple of times. We're looking at a second location. We're just trying to find that right location for them. Hopefully they'll be here the rest of this month, or sometime this month, and we can get something going. And probably one of our newest ones we're working with, South Central Development just recently signed a purchase agreement for the State Farm building downtown. We're looking at another building to revitalize like we did Covey's, and we actually have a business looking at that that's an out-of-town business. So that's not concrete yet, but at the same time, we felt it was important to get that building up and running and get another business in it. So we're really positive about that. Then I have 2 other businesses. One we thought it'd happen by now, but it's a corporate company, and we kind of got pushed back behind a couple other ones. So hopefully sometime this year we can get more impact on that. So we've done really well, I think, on trying to attract more businesses. to Winter. Just a couple other things. We just recently signed a purchase agreement that we sold one of our lots. We have a business owner that will be building an office on Main Street, and that'll be happening probably sometime this fall on that. The other thing that we continue to work on is is our downtown plaza idea. We've been working with a firm on that. We're in a little bit of a holding. I'm in the process of writing 3 grants right now to see what we get back on those. So somebody wants to help with grant writing, great. No, one is great, but I got 3 of them to get done, so I'll be spending a lot of time working on grant writing. And just another thing I just wanted to touch on, it wasn't one of our main focuses, but I have been in contact, made some different contacts on some housing, and we know that's an issue, and I have been in contact with individuals on some programs for rental properties through the state, and we have signed a deal, and we are hopefully we'll know more about that the next 12 to 24 months it's probably for some more rental property that I've worked with some individuals on to just let them know about programs, and then continue to work with some individuals on possibly some townhouses. That's a whole, a new thing there. But we've accomplished a lot. Once again, we hope that we appreciate the city's support, and I think hopefully if you look at your return on investment or in contributions, we've been able to show a real impact. I think if you look at our businesses that we've been involved with, there's probably 40 to 50 jobs that was created. There's property tax, there's utilities, and then just filling a lot of need with businesses and and services, from it, and everything kind of snowballs on one another. So we're working hard. I got a great board that's working hard to try to make Winter a better place. And what we're doing, once again, like I mentioned, we do thank you for your past support and hopefully continued support. We're asking same as we received last year, $25,000.
Council, floor is open to comment or question. Jeremy, would you like to say?
So, yeah, for clarification.
Yes.
You're thanking me for my sales ability, not my shooting ability.
100%. Yeah. You have comments on the sharpshooter, Jeremy, that you can share?
You're bringing it back. Mike, you're doing a great job. I feel that.
Yeah.
Everybody can see
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Chamber specifically is near and dear to my heart. Economic development's a whole different world of things,
Yep.
but you're doing a great job.
Right. Thank you.
Other comment or questions? Thanks. Hearing none, Chair would move to suspend the rules and move to new business items number 4 and 5. Council, do you have a motion on item number 4?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we donate $25,000 to the Winter Area Chambers.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Sprinkle with the motion, Councilman Clunt with the second. Floor is open to comment or questions. Hearing and seeing none, Chair will call the question, which is approving the donation of $25,000 to the Winter Area Chamber of Commerce. Council, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, this motion carries. Council, item number 5, do you have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion, we donate $25,000 to South Central Development.
Is there a second to
I'll
this
second
motion?
that.
Councilman Schramm with the motion and Councilman Sprinkle with the second of the motion.
Quick second.
Floor is open to comments or questions, council. Hearing and seeing none, Chair will call the question, which is approving the donation of $25,000 to South Central Economic Development Corporation. Council, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion carries. Moving to suspend the rules one last time, we'll go back to final portion of recognition of visitors and communications. We have a communication from the City of Winter coming from the HR department, our finance officer on the new hire reports.
I'm so sorry. I'm really drawn in by the donations. So there were 3 new hires in the last 3-week period. I apologize. It doesn't want to open.
That's okay, we're broadcasting live to millions at home.
Yeah. Great. The first new hire is William Highbear Jr. at $22.79 per hour in the Corrections Department, full-time with benefits. The second was Marie Medicine Blanket at $20.93 per hour, full-time in corrections, part-time in corrections with no benefits. And I apologize, there was only 2.
What was that amount? I didn't catch that.
Yep. For which one, the full-time or the part-time?
I was on the second one.
Okay, so the part-time was $20.93 per hour, which is starting wage, and the full-time was $22.79 per hour, which is starting wage.
$22.79, you said?
That is correct.
That was the first one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
There was a third one?
There was only 2. I'm sorry.
Oh.
I read it incorrectly.
Okay, thank you.
Council and public, that will conclude recognition of visitors and communications from the City of Winter. City of Winter will now move on to department reports. Tonight, we only have one department report, and that comes from the city engineer. Tonight, our guest is DGR and Jared Lewis. Floor is yours, podium's yours.
If you guys recall, last year, the electrical department, we asked you guys for some money to do a system study for the City of Winter. Today, we have DGR representatives here. We have Trent Bruce, we have Jacob Morris, and the man of the hour is Jared Luce. And he's going to give you guys a whole bunch of information. Basically, what this thing is, we wanted to identify our system needs and address our, age limitations, the wear and tear on our system. Best practices, put together a 5, 10, 15-year plan. These guys are giving us an idea of how to go underground, how to do it right the first time. And then we're going to talk a lot about redundancy in our system, and we're going to start at the substation. He's going to give you information all the way into town.
Thank you. Just get situated here. Yeah, like Troy said, I'm Jared Lucy with DGR Engineering. So you guys all pronounced it exactly how it's spelled. So anyway, thanks for having me here tonight. Like Troy mentioned, kind of have a team here assembled. We are an expanding company. We're headquartered out of Rock Rapids, Iowa, but we're branching out quite a ways. Just wanted to kind of touch on the fact that, we've been around for 72 years. Started out as kind of a generation and transmission consultant, but over the years have kind of developed into a full-service firm for the last number of years. So I do have some slides over there, so I'm going to be talking in electrical terms, which are hard to articulate well sometimes, so sometimes the best mode of doing that is through pictures and diagrams. So I do believe Troy also handed out a few reports, printed sets, that you can reference as needed. So yeah, anyway, thanks again. I wanted to just go ahead and thank the staff, Kurt and Troy and Chandra, for helping us out with the study, getting all the documentation and data that we needed to put this report together. And yeah, I guess we'll get started there. So go ahead, Jake. So to begin, overall, I want to touch on what we set out to do here. Overall, system evaluation and planning study of your electric system, so the facilities that the city owns to produce and to disseminate power for the community. So what that consists of at a high level is the city's internal system, which would be some 115 kV transmission facilities, the city's substations within a Western Area Power Administration facility, affectionately known as WAPA here for short. There's a single substation sourcing this town, and from it, the city receives 12.47 kV distribution power. What we did is take a look at your system, developed an up-to-date model, and then applied existing system conditions, existing system peak, with also a look at future load growth and what that does to the system as you guys grow and continue to develop within the community and in the outside areas of the community. This capital improvements plan developed from this study is for a 10-year period. So we look at projections out to 2034. So our goals, after all that, is to assess the system and identify any deficiencies that we see based on ANSI standards, based on just updated industry practice, best practices, and recommend improvements to address those deficiencies, and then also the cost estimates associated with addressing all of those deficiencies. Like I mentioned before, we looked at the existing transmission, substation, and distribution system. I did mention that WAPA owns the outside, it owns the fenced area that your substation facilities fall within. And then within that, the city has various ownership arrangements with WAPA and also a cost share agreement with Rosebud Electric Cooperative, an adjacent utility. And essentially, you have a couple main power transformers that are available to you to operate. And then from that substation, 3 distribution feeders at 12.47 kV feed the town. And it's located about 3/4 of a mile south of the city's load beginnings, I guess. So there is a one-line diagram of the WAPA Winter substation is what it's known as. So if you can kind of see, there's a couple dashed boxes on each one of those green alignments there. Those are the facilities owned by Winter, is in those dashed boxes. So you have the 2 power transformers, the 2 115 kV interrupters or breakers, and then at the top of the page you have the 12.47 kV recloser bus facilities that the city owns as well. Here's an overall map of the distribution system, and then as you can see down at the bottom edge of that page, that's where the substation is. And like I mentioned, there's about a good 1/4 mile there where the circuits run together in parallel in a relatively narrow alignment, and then they branch off to feed the city with 3 separate mainline circuits, and that's all at 12.47 kV voltage. So looking at the load a little bit, what was assumed and what was applied to future load growth, the left part of that where the lines kind of are a little jagged there, that's historical peaks, and so it's common to see a big peak and then a few years of down and then back up again to a peak and then a few years down, and then it just kind of keeps going, ebbs and flows based on the weather essentially. So that's kind of the long and short of it. We assumed a healthy growth for the community, primarily because when we look at, I'll get into a little bit here, but when we look at developing capital improvements for physical plant, you need to be able to accommodate a larger type of community development, such as a business or a manufacturing facility. You want to have some headroom there that you can take on without uprooting everything financially and infrastructure-wise. So we assumed about a 3% load growth over the next 10 years, which in all likelihood, if things kind of go as they are right now, you'll probably be somewhere below that, but we'll talk about additionally as well as a lot of this is load driven, and so we develop a roadmap for you to follow as the loads come on, not necessarily with strict time frames for what we're looking at here. So go ahead, Jake. So, and this is illegible here at this view, but in your books there that are handed out, we went through with the staff and spoke with the mayor a little bit about developments in the area and where the likely load growth centers would be. And so when we looked at our load growth model, we put the load growth where it would be coming online or as expected to kind of target our model a little bit so it can be as realistic as possible. So those are just estimated areas, and then there's also kind of an aggregation in the top right corner of that map showing how much load and such. Go ahead, Jake. So looking at the analysis of the system, we have a design criteria utilized for municipal electric systems. We look primarily at N-1 contingency and the ability of the utility to backfeed any single major component successfully and still be able to manage serving the peak load of the town. So any piece of transmission, substation, or distribution facilities, if that goes down, do you have the ability to backfeed? Do you have the ability to roll with that situation and keep power online? We also want to look at voltage. So criterion 2 is maintaining adequate voltage level. So you avoid brownouts and blackouts and equipment failures due to low voltage. Criterion 3 is capacity of the circuit, so current carrying capacity, looking to make sure you don't overload any equipment, shorten its lifespan, etc. Criterion 4 and 5 kind of run together, but you want to have a flexible system that you're able to adapt to changes, you're able to take on new loads, for example, or backfeed around segments of circuitry that might go down due to weather or just equipment failure with aging condition. So this is a voltage drop profile. We're focused on the left portion of that. Go ahead and hit next, Jake. Go ahead and, oh, back one, please. More back. So anyway, that's the primary distribution system that we're looking at. So there's a whole bunch of voltage drop that happens past the utility's ownership point. So we have to keep voltage tight, what the city owns, to allow for adequate service at the end user. So all the way down to the outlet. So the circled area is the primary distribution system that we're concerned with, which equates to a max voltage drop of 3.5 volts at the distribution voltage at 12.47 kV. So, go ahead. We utilize utility modeling software, Windmill. We do an in-detailed model of your electric system with all the conductor sizes and impedances put in, plus apply load to those components. And we're able to toggle different scenarios, N-1, N-2 if you wanted to, but we stick to N-1 and we measure the voltage across the system through that modeling. So after all that, we boil down the kind of the weak points or what we would consider to be deficiencies, and so we can take steps to look at addressing those over the next 10 years or 20 years or however long it takes. But primary deficiency we identified was that there is not a backup 12.47 kV substation bus for the community. So we consider that to fail the N-1 contingency. When it comes to backing up the transformers, there's some limitations there. Your primary transformer is 33 MVA, so there's plenty of capacity there for the community. You guys have about an 11, 12 MVA peak right now. If something were to happen to the primary unit, you would not be able to back up the full peak of the town under your existing capacity agreement with Rosebud. So there's a cost share, a capacity share situation going on with the jointly owned Rosebud transformer. And so you're actually only able to use 8.3 MVA, which is just right about your summer peak. So, but in the wintertime, you wouldn't be able to back up the full 11 meg that your city runs on. So that's if something were to happen to the primary power transformer. So with that, there's obviously the age of both transformers are over 40 years at this point. So when they're put in the early 80s, it was done well, and I think that the transformers have ran fairly well, and it's approaching the point of reaching the end of their expected useful life. So actually have some indication that the smaller transformer is older than the primary one, but we didn't find good documentation on that, but just rough terms, they're both just over 40 years old in service. The existing recloser bus, so there will be some pictures in a moment here, but the city's 12.5 kV bus is all overhead configuration. So you're obviously exposed to any elements, severe weather, which everybody's used to around here, but also varmints, things like that, where today's technology would kind of propose an enclosed, weather-protected control building, metal-clad switchgear, et cetera. Next slide there, Jake. Oh, back one, sorry. Apologize, I missed that. So that's on the substation side. On the distribution side, you just have the general age and condition items with overhead electric system. You got a lot of stuff that's been put out there in the last 20 years, and that's in pretty decent shape. The stuff that, visiting with Kurt and Troy, some of the older lines harder to get to, so back alleys, a lot of single phase taps, hard to maintain, hard to access. Those are obviously the older ones because they're not as fun to fix, right? So they just kind of get by, getting access as little as possible, and that's all normal. So you're not doing anything different there. There's a lot of number 4 copper out there, and that's just standard kind of deficiencies we see. So now when you apply load growth, today your existing peak, your distribution system handles that fairly well. You don't have any overcapacity of lines. You don't have any overloads right now that we can see in the modeling. But you do have, with northwest area of town potentially having some commercial growth in the next 10 years, you do run into having some circuits that are under capacity. So there's a couple 4/0 segments that probably need to be beefed up a little bit, and I guess there's some there's an overhead switch out there needs to be installed so that we can backfeed appropriately on the main line. So without getting into too weedy of details there, you do have some issues once that load growth starts coming on in the northwest area of town. Nothing immediate there, but and then one of the things we look at is outside of your substation, you have your 3 feeders come out of the sub, all pretty much in the same footprint, within 50 to 60 feet width. And because there's kind of a pinch point there with the ag land that those lines traverse, access is a concern. If something were to happen, extreme weather event, primarily snow where access is blocked, things like that, that corridor there is kind of a pinch point that we would be concerned with when trying to dial in an N-1 proof plan there. So go ahead, Jake.
Jared,
Yeah, go
you
ahead.
refer N-1. What is that?
Yeah, so N-1, N being just where you're at in the time chart, N at 0 is today. N-1 is, that's not a great way of explaining it. Losing one, yeah, no, it's just losing one piece of equipment. So if one of those feeders goes down, do you have the ability to backfeed it? Or if that power transformer fails, your N is the component, -1 is your less one of those components. So, sorry to, like I said, used to these terms, and so any questions, just feel free to chime in. So, but yeah, N-1 would be loss of any major component. We don't look at, loss of a meter over here, a single transformer over here. We're looking at primary, large, bulk components.
So when you say an N-1 event, is something happened to one of those lines?
Yes, if one of those lines,
And you don't
yeah.
like the three of them running together because it increases the probability of something happening to one of those lines?
Yeah,
Is that what I'm picking up?
Correct. If something happens to one of them, it probably happened to the other two.
Because they're so close together.
Tornado or whatever?
Yeah, so if you hit a tornado, or a tornado hits you rather, you're not looking for tornadoes, but if a tornado hits you, it's going to wipe you out.
Could take all three.
Yeah, and now that's an extreme example because you don't design stuff for being tornado proof. But high wind event, for example, a big branch could go right into one and then right into the next one, kind of a cascade effect there. And it's about a 1/4 mile stretch. And so I'll mention how we would plan to address something like that, and it's not with anything earth shaking. But yeah, that's where I'm going with it. It's likely to take out multiple things if it takes out one of
I
them.
got you. Gotcha. We're on board now.
Good question. And so here, you can't really see this, so I won't spend much time on it, but the voltage drop and capacity reports for all of the contingency situations are all included in the report there. What this one's looking at is the capacity issue at the transformer. So if you lose the primary transformer, the other one under peak load, you're at overcapacity there for that unit. So, and then once you develop the load growth, once you see some of that come on, there are some circuit overloads out on the system. There's some voltage drop concerns with that future load growth, and then plus the transformer situation just gets a little bit worse, right? So, and you can just buzz right through that one, thanks. Here's an aerial photo of this. I thought this might help a little bit, bring some context to it. That red line that's dashed, that's the underground cable that you only have one of those runs to that overhead recloser bus that's at the top of the screen, and that is what you guys own. And essentially, between that transformer to that recloser bus is where your guys' substation pinch point is right there. And then, so your primary transformer's on the west side there, north is up, and the east transformer is your Rosebud shared ownership unit, and that's on the small side. So, just so kind of some broad terms, you can kind of see what we're looking at there. The 115 kV bus is that horizontal arrangement across the bottom of the substation there, and that's where your transmission terminals come in, where WAPA serves. So on a transmission level, you're sitting okay. You have multiple T lines coming in and out of that substation. So if something were to happen to one of those lines, you'd have 115 kV power there to backfeed things. So there's really not much from a transmission standpoint. Jake. Here's a different view. The one on the left is the bus coming right out of that main power transformer, and the one on the right is the city-owned bus that's just a little bit further north, just for purposes of description there. Again, there's the one on the right is the backup because you're actually looking east there. You're looking northeast, so the one on the west is the primary one. The one on the east is the smaller one. So here's kind of where I'm talking in terms of the egress feeders, the mainline circuits. You got the red, blue, and green coming out of the sub there. That's primarily what I was talking about as far as the similar alignment there. And, of course, it's across ag land or or private property there, and it's always tough to access those all the time, so. Again, just another view looking north out of the substation. And here are some examples of some of the distribution segments that are included in some of the overhead to underground conversion, which would be, targeted, what the staff determines to be kind of needed areas of improvement there. Again, just more pictures, distribution system, looking at some of the older lines, hard to get to, vegetation, a lot of times an issue, having to tree trim and things like that, right-of-way maintenance. So, long story short, why do you want to tackle these improvements? It's to eliminate the deficiencies, improve all the things we talked about, future load growth, accommodating business development, increase reliability, flexibility. So that's where we're going with this, and also to take a proactive view versus just a storm response view or a reactive view. Can't see this very well from my standpoint here, but we do have things broken down in phases. Phase 1, more priority. Phase 2, a little bit lesser priority. Phase 1, we would consider developing your 12.47 kV bus to where you have 2 feeds going into a weather protected metal enclosure control building where you would have housed metal clad switchgear breakers, indoor climate controlled, modern protective devices, modern relaying. You would look at SCADA connectivity so you could better monitor the system. Those are maybe some luxuries. You would look at that at that time when you're doing the design for that. But long story short, we want to get an additional feed of 12.5 to the town if something were to happen in the substation. So that's essentially what we're proposing there. And then the existing recloser bus, it's put in its time. It's not ancient. There's older stuff out there, but addressing this would also address future age and condition issues with the recloser, vacuum breakers, and older controls that's on that equipment. So you can't really see it very good here. I apologize for that, but that's essentially what we're doing, is addressing that 12.5 deficiency. And then phase 2 in the capital improvements plan is replacement of the east transformer with a larger capacity unit so you could actually handle the future load growth as that load growth comes online. Go ahead. Just distribution improvements. You're going to see a listing of all the costs that we have estimated here. Full disclosure, we don't expect that you would address all of these in the next 10 years. Essentially, the next 10 years is kind of the limits of those numbers and how accurate they are, essentially. You can't really look out financially beyond 10 years without having to assume some significant inflation, or, you're throwing a dart at a board at that point. But so for the next 10 years, the idea is that these improvements are kept in mind, and then progress is made towards them as financially feasible. So we're not saying you got to do all this or things are going to melt down. It's essentially, these are the priorities, working with the staff, working with some observations in the field. This is how we would approach it, and it's all color coded, and you can't really read the text here, but essentially phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 over the next 10 years. This is how it would look. Also, we did include essentially all of the existing overhead single-phase taps and everything being converted to underground, just to give you guys an idea of the costs associated with doing that. It's not necessarily, we're not saying that you have to bury it all, but we did include costs that you guys can use to budget for, the staff can use to kind of keep in mind how much manpower they're going to contribute to these projects. So essentially, it's just here for your guys' information to do with it as you see fit. Go ahead, Jake. So phase 1, we're recommending there's an overhead to underground conversion area that was kind of coined as the, maybe needing it, maybe the most due to age and condition. You know, that's a sizable chunk of money there at 4.1 million. You know, I would say that our bigger concern would probably be, well, it is the 12.47 switchgear upgrades, is getting additional redundancy for the city's, you know, critical feeder recloser bus.
So is that number to take all of our overhead and put all of it underground, or is there some recommended places?
So, yeah, in you can kind of see, you can see Jake's mouse there. Go back to that map there. Like, yeah, you can, yeah, so if you look, the purple there, it's kind of that big old swath there. If you kind of move the mouse there, it's hard to tell here. I won't bore you to death with where that is, but.
I just wanted a general
Yeah.
answer. Is that $4 million to put everything that's overhead underground?
Nope, that'd be
No,
just
okay.
phase one. Yep,
That's all I wanted to know, okay.
yep. Just
For
phase one there.
reference, Council, he is in section 7.
Yeah, I've been looking through this, and trying to follow along.
Okay.
And I just didn't know if that was the total project of everything or one piece.
Yep, just a piece here, yep.
Showing
Very
this.
good.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, but, you know, I almost should flip those, you know, the distribution portion with the substation on that slide, but that, don't get into being caught up as to what is listed first or whatever, you know what I mean? So yeah, so phase one, $6.6 million. And that would probably take at least 3-4 years to implement at a minimum.
24 to 28.
Yep. So that's if you got started now, you're talking about, you know, substation design taking probably a year, and then procurement, you got another year, and then construction another year. So you're right in that 3 to 4 year period if you started right now, which probably is not going to happen. So go ahead to the next slide, Jake.
Are these numbers somebody doing the work? I mean, I don't.
Yep.
Are guys capable of a lot of this work?
Yeah, good question. So what it is you'll see the distribution stuff, so the overhead to underground conversion, your staff could handle that. The substation stuff, that's not their wheelhouse. I wouldn't expect them to do it. It's more niche. Long story short, that's kind of the transformer replacement. You wouldn't handle it. All of these costs include outside contracting. So we referenced bid prices, competitive bids, you know, across the region to come up with these estimates. So they're pretty good for now. They're generally good for the first 2-3 years here, and then who knows what inflation's going to do. But yeah, that's a good question. Phase two, we're looking at another phase of the overhead to underground conversion, and then you know, we're also looking at in our estimation, the best way to handle the bottleneck of the feeders coming out of that substation is bury one of those egress feeders. They're all overhead right now. If you bury one of them, you at least got a line that's not going to be impacted by the same sort of event. You know, that would add a significant level of hardening to your guys' egress. So, which one you did, you know, that'd be a kind of a boots on the ground call there. But, you know, you'd probably look at the oldest circuit, probably I think it's feeder 3, probably. Off the top of my head, I can't recall which one, feeder 1 or 3. But then there's also some mainline replacement in there. What I'll just state right now is that phase 2 and phase 3 essentially are due to load growth. There's the age and condition stuff. You're going to have the overhead to underground conversion components over time. You're going to want to chip away at that as you guys you know, budget for it and stuff. Transformer replacement, KY2A, you know, that's if the load comes and you need a bigger transformer. So right now, the second transformer is rated for 12.5 MVA. Your guys' existing peak is 11.5 MVA. So essentially, in the next 10 years, if you add a couple meg, you'd probably need to look at, if you want to have redundancy with that, with your power transformer, that's when you'd look at doing that. Go ahead, Jake. So the Phase 3 improvements, like I said, don't get caught up with which ones are in Phase 2 or Phase 3. It's just more or less divvying out the costs, trying to spread it out here to what, palatable projects. But the remaining improvements for Phase 3 would be, your overhead to underground conversion that wasn't completed. And also, looking at upgrading feeder 3 egress circuit. If you didn't already do that, I think that's the oldest overhead egress circuit that you have out there. That's what I recall from our conversations with Kurt and the guys. So yeah, Phase 3 right at 4.5 million. So overall, on the next slide, we have it all kind of laid out there. So you're looking at, if you did everything in the next 10 years, it'd be $17.7 million, which, like I said, you're not going to go out and do that right now. That's not our expectation. But that's today's costs, what it takes to address all the deficiencies, and then also future deficiencies accommodating load growth.
It may not be your realm, but I ask questions because I know nothing about it, but.
Perfect.
Is there any grants or anything to help with this stuff ever, or is it all public fund? Oh, it's coming?
Well, yeah.
You had grant up.
Okay.
The answer is maybe. Maybe. So, what, I'll just, it's the next bullet here, but, I'll just hit it right now. So, grant opportunities in the electric utility world have not been predominant as water treatment, as other, somewhat federally funded activities. So, I'm not in those other fields, so I can't speak with great certainty on federal availability, federal fund availability for other disciplines, but I just know that in the electric world, there hasn't been much. So what we're seeing with all the federal money being spent is that they are kicking out grant opportunities for infrastructure funding, and we're currently working on one of those opportunities it's actually basically headquartered out of Minnesota, but there's a regional grant application that we were approached with actually last year, the year before. This is round 2. We weren't really through any of this yet. We'd kind of just got on board, didn't have much time to put any efforts in on the first round, but the first round wasn't awarded to the regional grant writers. So long story short, instead of just everybody submitting small little grant applications for this big federal dollars here, these big federal dollars, it's some grant writers that said, let's try to pool a large regional footprint to, it limits how much application and administration efforts the federal government needs to put into it, and then it also impacts the most people with, I guess, as few of pen strokes as possible. I guess you could look at it that way. So anyway, where I'm going with this is that there's currently a grant application that we're working with grant writers. It's a Minnesota Regional GRIP grant. I have a trip there. I don't know why that's a misspell, but it's called GRIP grant, Grid Resilience Investment Program, or some acronym. But essentially what it equates to is that our substation hardening, so our switchgear upgrades and some overhead to underground conversion dollars could be available there if the application's successful. So right now we're in preliminary phase of that. We're working, this is actually good timing because we have a lot of costs and scoping information available. We're kicking this stuff to the grant writers. They're assembling this big, I guess it'd be considered like a concept paper that's going to be, and the application goes in April, and then you don't find out for like 7 months later, and they're usually behind. So that's where we're at right now. We think it's a good opportunity. It's a 75% grant, 25% would be the city share. This would be something, if it does come to fruition, it's by no means guaranteed, but it'd be something to be a big deal. And at the federal level, they're really looking at disadvantaged communities and trying to get disadvantaged communities a lot of federal dollars if they can. It's a big component to how they award these grants. Well, Winter falls in what they consider Justice 40. So they consider a bunch of different environmental factors. Anyway, that bodes in your guys' favor. It's hard to tell whether there's a rhyme or reason for who falls in Justice 40 community or not, honestly, because we deal with a lot of, I'd say, communities that are in a lot rougher shape than Winter, and they're not even listed. Like they're not even in consideration. So that is actually, Winter's presence in this regional grant application is actually looked at as a benefit, and they're actually happy to see another municipal they can consider Justice 40. So for what that's worth, that's helpful. And we're looking at, decent chance that if something like this goes through, it'll be a big deal for you guys' approaching that phase one. If we could get $5 million in that grant, that would go a long ways towards phase one. So anyway, the next steps, how we would see it, is you guys take this information, digest it with staff, hit us up with any questions. You can reach out to me with any technical details you want to see. Review the documentation, and then what we'd recommend is going into essentially preliminary design phase, where we detail out the scope, where we look at talking with WAPA. They own that facility, so they're going to have a say as to how things happen there for you guys. Unfortunately, probably a lot more say than what we would appreciate. We'd appreciate just be able to do what we think we need to do. But they're the government, they're the federal government, and they're going to have a say. They're here to help. They're here to help, and so there'd be some coordination with them. We'd develop more firm budget numbers. These are pretty conservative estimates. Like I said, we have all contractor labor involved. We actually have a WAPA contingency factor in there because we've had to deal with WAPA before, and it adds cost to a project. And develop a firm schedule, and then look at financial considerations. What we can do is work with Missouri River. I know they do your electric rate assessments. We work with them regularly on what this looks like. How are you to pay for this, and what kind of rate impacts would be associated with doing this work? And obviously the grant goes a long ways towards minimal impact rates, but ultimately we'd recommend that you guys look at going forward with phase one. And what that looks like, there's a lot of options there, but this would be a start, is taking a look at it. We can answer any questions you have.
So my question is,
Yep.
Is this grant application period or whatever short-term, or is it going to be possibly around here a while that you're talking about applying for?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's going to be short-term, I'm concerned about, what's the term, our substation being over 40 years old, and those are expensive.
Yes.
Can we only put in phase one, or can you put in phase two, or you only recommend what we can afford to do, or where are we at with all of that?
Yeah, so, the biggest thing is, you with the federal grant deal, we're just trying to get things to work. So this federal grant has all these riders on it, like, well, you gotta have grid modernization. You gotta have, they use all these terms, they don't know what they mean. They just don't. They don't know what that means. Somebody wrote the grant requirements, and so a lot of times they're looking at green energy initiatives. Not opposed to that, but not what you guys have as a deficiency here. I'm not looking at your system and saying you need more, they're not bad ideas, but they're not going to address the deficiencies we see. So what we're trying to do is get enough of those high-tech things in these grants to qualify for the bigger picture, which is actually addressing your deficiencies. So there's kind of this wordsmithing game that you try to honestly, you try to make it work, but we would just try to get as much as we could of phase one done, because those are kind of the hot pressing items. So, those preliminary numbers there, once we get into the detailed estimating for the grant, we would put as much of that in there as we possibly could to address phase one. So, as you mentioned, the power transformers are like 3 years out with design, and they cost $2.5 million. So that's something that, whether they're not paying for transformers in these grants, they kind of explicitly say that. So that's something that you're just gonna have to budget for in the next, if you can't budget for it the next 10 years, then you're on 50-year transformers. So that's just something we put in here to consider. It's a major event. If one of those power transformers goes down, right now your concern is being able to backfeed the town. That's the primary concern. So we need to look at our WAPA agreement and our Rosebud agreement. Those are just desktop conversations. You determine what you can do, what you can't, to try to utilize that 12.5 MVA transformer. If you can use all that, then that's one less thing to worry about. The other thing is the bus situation, where you only have one lineup of 12.5 gear. That goes down, there's nothing, you're offline. So you'll have to, that situation, you might, you'd have to coordinate this with WAPA, but essentially you'd be trying to build distribution infrastructure in the substation to get it out to your feeders and try to figure out a way to have those lines protected. You do have some main protection on the transformer. So, there's ways you can do it, but you're really roping stuff together if you don't have, a hard-lined 12.5 backup. So I hope that answers your question there.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you said the transformers aren't grant eligible,
Yeah.
that answered my
Took me a
question.
while to get there, but that's,
You're talking phase one, 5 years, what are you recommending?
yeah,
5 maybe on phase one?
yeah, that's really subjective, but yeah. Yep.
I thought I wrote 4 years, Joe, but okay.
And if it's 4 or 5,
Yeah.
as long as you're making progress and you understand what we're dealing with, and then,
So I just have, and maybe you don't even have an answer to this, but Chandra, you might know, how much money are we currently transferring out of the electric revenues to operate the rest of the city? Just roughly, I don't need to have it be set in stone. And then my next question after that was, how much is left over at the end of every year?
So it's not quite a simple answer.
Okay.
Brad, what I can tell you is this year you budgeted right around $850,000 to $900,000 to be transferred to the general fund. And that's the only transfer that they're making this year. However, that's only electric, and that's all electric could afford. You're also transferring money out of water and sewer to support it too.
No, I just wanted to know, and the answer to my question is less than $1 million.
Currently, yes.
We need to figure out how to get 1.7 million per year, every year, and still not lose what we're funding the rest of our city with. So
Your current
we
budgets.
have a task ahead of us.
Yeah, your current budgets, you are budgeting to spend 100% of your revenues by supporting other funds. So you are not budgeted to make anything in the electric fund currently. Now, as you pointed out a couple months ago, we did make $300,000 last year because our revenues came in more than we budgeted and our expenses came in less than we budgeted. So we did make $300,000. At the beginning of January, you had $1,989,823 in cash for the electric fund. That does not include your reserve, which is just a little over $1 million.
That's not the casualty reserve, that's $1 million also, right?
That is $1 million, yep, $1,044,000.
But we have to figure out over 10 years to figure out 1.7 million in additional revenues to pay for these improvements over this 10-year period.
If we don't get a grant.
Who cares about a grant? Whether it's grant or whether it's raise the rate or whether it's not fund the rest of city. But we have a serious situation here with this old stuff that we have out there.
You know, we always talk about needs and wants.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a high
I'll
priority.
guarantee you, nobody in town wants to go buy a kerosene lantern.
Jared?
Yep.
None of the three phases included a second transformer location. If this substation would go down, in a lot of the communities, there's a second location that you
Yep.
can pull from a different distribution line, correct?
Yeah, you know, it's nice being right next to WAPA because they've got a loop 115 kV network. Problem is if you want to tap WAPA's 115 line, you got to build quite a substation. You know, they're going to want to do one of these, not entirely. So we did look at estimating, and those numbers were just depressing. So,
How depressing.
you know, you're looking at, off the top of my head, I took them out because it was not favorable, but, you know, you're looking at, you know, a whole 115 lineup, another whole control building for their purposes, and then it's all the WAPA factor. And, you know, I think we had somewhere around $10 million for a substation, just to get you another in and out loop. And then I can't remember if I can get that information pretty readily available. And I think I'd rather do that than say too much here because I'm drawing off of my memory that I kind of put behind some of these
Those are the
items.
numbers I heard, so.
Yeah, I want to say it was like $10 million for the sub, and I don't know if that included the transmission line that you'd had to build.
So now we just need to raise 2.7 million a year for 10 years, yeah.
Okay, so what's the good news? In your opinion, what's the status of the state of our electric plant? You've seen it all.
I'd say that, you know, it's all ran really well. It's ran well to date. So what that means is we're accustomed to seeing issues with a main power transformer LTC. Not regularly, but not uncommon. So you're supposed to get into that primary transformer LTC, and what that is essentially a bunch of gears that moves the tap position of that transformer to accommodate for voltage regulation on the low voltage side. So as your load increases, it's going to pop up the voltage so you can maintain voltage. Well, it's not uncommon for that thing to go out. We recommend full inspection, internal inspection. So you pull the lid off, you get in there, you look at the timing, you look at the circuitry, you look at the oil every 5 years. And that really hasn't been done, the full internal inspection every 5 years. Right now, you got to be careful when you do that because you can't carry load all the time. You do it in the shoulder months, right, where you have lower load, spring, fall. But anyway, like where I was saying is it's been very reliable for you to date, based on just what I know about the transformer. And it's been 40 years, and so it's been in service, and it's done really well for you. So I think when it was put in, it was done right for the time, with the exception of not having another 12.5 bus. I really don't understand that rationale. I don't know what they were thinking there. Because you guys had a lot of stuff going on in the early 80s, you know. I don't know why they wouldn't have had a dual bus situation there. I can't speak to that, but you know, if you'd had another recloser set up like you do today with additional underground cable run, you know, it's not great that you're doing a shared relationship with Rosebud because you got to deal with it. But there's benefits to that. Well, you had some cost sharing at the initial installation. So
Is that an 80-20 share?
it's a 66.5, 33.5 share. And then I will say that your WAPA arrangement, you have you actually only own 77.5% of the capacity of the main unit, which is plenty. You know, it's plenty for your peak. You have a 33 MVA transformer there, but there is a cost share arrangement there because WAPA takes care of a lot of the maintenance on that stuff. It's probably put in place like that because at the time you didn't want to have to manage that stuff. So now WAPA does it. You pay them an annual fee. I don't know what that fee is. It's you pay them a fee to do the maintenance and stuff. But to my knowledge, they haven't looked under the LTC hood. They haven't went through it. You're supposed to do that every 5 to 7 years. It all depends on operations. After the first 500,000 LTC operations, you're supposed to be in that thing every 5 to 7 years roughly, or every 70 to 100,000 operations after that. But anyway, I think that
Still waiting for the good news.
yeah. So good news. I mean, that's tough because I'm here to just show you the issues. I'm not here to show you, but I think you got a capable line crew. You do a lot of the work yourself. That's not the case industry-wide. People can't find linemen. You can't keep it staffed. So you guys can actually address the issue if something does happen on your distribution system. You've got big mainline feeders. You got 477 ACSR out there, so that really helps. You only have 3 feeders feed in town, which is not many, but when you have 477 ACSR, that's fine for now. Probably look at a new feeder in the future, whatever. Yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it is I think you can handle any issues on the distribution system. It's not that bad. The sky's not falling, but you need to be aware that things are 40 years old and it needs to be addressed. There needs to be a game plan. So that's essentially what we're looking at. Not even going to tell you when you have to do it, but this is for your information.
Financially, there are options out there too, not just the grant. There are loaning options similar to SRF, which is our water sewer loans that we have.
Yep.
I mean, we can start setting aside money too specific to this in interest-bearing accounts. We have some options as well, and based off of the CIP that they provided us, we can base our options off of what they've given us too. So
Yep.
financially, I wouldn't sit here and say, oh, start freaking out, guys. We're not there by any means.
Right.
We've got some options.
You got a reserve fund in place and stuff. I mean, we'll walk into a situation where there's no reserves, everything's a disaster.
Yes.
So that's not this situation.
But we don't have 17 million in that.
Right?
No.
Be nice reserve. That was the case.
There would be questions if we were holding on.
So Chandra, another question for your just memory, okay? How much annual revenue comes from a penny of electric sales? Like if we took a penny increase,
Oh,
okay? Would that be $400,000?
Jared,
do
you
I remember, like-
might have what is our KWH, what was it last year?
Yeah, it's in the table in there. Gosh, I'm trying to think here.
Yeah, I mean,
Why did I think-
Sorry, I do know, but
Why did I
it's,
think that it was like 180,000 is a penny?
I think it's probably like, just based on our sales, if we were at
Yep.
10.2, I think we did like 3.3 in revenues, which I think a penny.
your budgeted revenue is 2.8 million.
2.8, so it gets you around, that penny is 300,000.
Okay, 300,000, okay, thanks.
yeah, so your energy sold this last year, 2023, was 38 megawatt hours. No, 38,000 megawatt hours. That doesn't mean anything to you.
Help me on that one, but.
That's all I had in here,
If
so.
a penny raises us
Sorry.
200,000,
That helps me.
how many pennies do we need to get to 1.7 a year? So that's what I was.
You're looking at a nickel a kilowatt hour.
So you're going up by,
No, I understand.
You could base it
But
off of a couple
Just
different
asking the
things,
question.
I totally get it. And I think you compare, there's some communities, municipalities out there that probably are in that 15.2 range.
No, that wasn't a component.
It's not knee-jerk.
Yeah, with the loans that are available, they are similar, like I said, to the SRF, so then there's surcharges that would go onto your account, and they would do that rate study with you. I believe you
Yep.
have someone on staff
Yeah.
who helps with that too.
Yeah, and so I should point out, when I meant, funding, I was thinking just the grants, the cash. But yeah, there are mechanisms. We've worked with other communities with, there's stuff that comes up, and I'm not a whiz on that, I admit, but we do have a rate. Our president actually does rate studies, and we work with Missouri River a lot, and so we essentially develop a financial model and build in these improvements, and then, you know, depending on the avenue you have, whether it's a incentivized loan, or we'd figure in grants and that sort of thing in there as well. Also, there's the utility bond market that we often coordinate, you know, the financial side of things with that, so.
With all those bonds and loans and everything except the grant, you still gotta have enough revenue to pay them back. And that's where it gets down to how much do we have to charge to pay for the system that we need to have in winter.
Yeah, real quick on that, we can certainly help you out with that. I will tell you though that, you know, you do have a good load base. You have 11 meg. So this is not an impossible feat. I'm just going off of compared to smaller communities that have bigger problems than you. You know, they're the ones that are really in trouble.
There's the good news.
Yeah, there you go. I've seen a lot worse.
The second hind tip.
I've seen a lot worse, so.
Well, and
it's-
again, you're not saying we have to complete it all in 10 years.
Right.
You're saying you gave us 10 years because that was the most accurate numbers.
Yep.
But you can choose to break this out over 20 years too, Brad. Granted, you just won't have a good accounting of what that could be over 20 years, because we know even 10 years is getting to be a stretch with inflation.
Yeah, I mean, I do.
But we still have 40-year-old equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's not uncommon to get 50 years out of them either, but it's just at some point you got to say, okay, we're planning on the successor is in the works, you know, whether it's.
Because if it goes down today, we can't get another one for 3 years, right?
Yep.
And through the summertime, you say we're okay. In the wintertime, you're gonna get a little chilly.
You could have, that's where you'd have your problems.
Yeah.
Assuming it, you know, if you could get something reworked with Rosebud where you would be able to use the full capacity of that, you could buy yourself a couple years, you know. But as growth comes on, I'm not seeing a community like yours going backwards. I mean, you'll have, like I said, you'll have your ebbs and flows and load based on weather, but yeah, I mean, that's a conversation that needs to happen. And, you know, like I said, we can talk to Missouri River, we can build a financial model to show what the impact is, you know, making assumptions here and there, and then you throw in the effect of the grant if you were to get it, and then a lot of that gets better. But yeah, haven't had a ton of success with those large grants yet, but we're gonna keep plugging away and see what we can do.
Ultimately, what you're telling us is if we don't plan for the failure of that equipment, we're basically planning to fail.
Yeah, you gotta have something. You gotta start working on something. So, anyway, guys, I appreciate giving a lot of time here. I kind of went way over what
That's all
I
right.
planned on.
That was-
Appreciate it. Yep. Thanks to the staff and everybody for helping us out. And I can provide any details as needed. So just reach out to Trent or Jake or myself, and we'll get you squared away. So
You have an office just down the hall, right?
I don't, but Jake does. Right?
Jake does, you
Jake
do,
does.
Trent, you do too.
While you're talking about Jake, do you guys have any other civil engineers?
No, he's the only guy. I don't know.
Got the A-team term.
So, all right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jared.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You can trip him on the way.
All right. Council, that concludes our department report. City of Winter has no bid openings for February 5th. There are no Board of Adjustments for February 5th. Old business. City of Winter is on to old business. There's one item to be
Mayor?
considered.
Could I ask for a 5-minute recess?
Absolutely. Is there a second? Okay. We have Councilman Schramm would like a recess. Councilman Hockett will second that. Everybody in favor, please say aye. Aye. Let's get out of here for 5 minutes and stretch the legs and come back. How about let's be back at 8:30, 9 minutes.
Nice. Yep, so.
Sorry, I was sniffling so bad my nose got to running and it was like, oh, I just got.
Mics are still on with that.
Dan?
What? I've got it, thank you.
Sure. You want anything?
Oh, the second, why can't I do? Oh, look at that.
All lined up.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
Somebody thought of
they didn't say what. So that cantiga is still in it, right?
Yes.
But, well, maybe this is second, because I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Okay, Lucas Frederick is going to replace one. Basically. So I can change that, okay. Because I can easily just change the name, and like that on the. And that cantiga stays in it, right? Okay. Remember that, right, where this.
The bids last 4 or 5 years since it just got crazy.
Question
Used to
mark.
be able to get our transmitting at
See what she answers.
Okay.
30 weeks, sorry.
Do you want me to send you that
30 weeks.
list of?
Literally, I remember not.
Oh, I know
long
what
ago,
thing I was gonna
Plenty of
tell you.
bids too.
I
Now,
went to
you got
that-
fewer bids.
Did you go to Reliance?
No.
Oh,
Unless you get big
you said you went
size.
to that, I thought, okay, you changed your mind, you went to that.
Reliance.
They did a dinner, they're doing the same show we're doing.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna tell you, I went to look for that, for the ad, the playbill thing, you know, and I can't get it. First of all, it shows me that I'm not at the right site, and.
Oh my God, do I have to come and see you again? Do I just have to have Laura do it?
It's not out of the way.
What do you want me to do? You pick.
Well, I could have Laura do it, you know, she's. But I tried it, I just tried it once, and then it
But you went, instage.com.
yeah, I went instage,
.com.
/,
I don't even do slides. I just go to their.
instage.com, but then I did that.
Jesus.
Oh, I
Yeah,
don't even.
recliners.
I go in.
So just at instage.com, that's gonna get me to it?
Yes, it'll get you to their
That was good to hear that.
But
stuff.
then,
Then you go to search and you type in the kitchens post. H-I-N. Ultimately, apostrophe, you have to have it exactly everything.
maybe I did that, but maybe there's a whole
You type in H-I-N-C-H-I-N, you're not going to get anything. They can't control the rate. Now, all caps, all those, capitalized, what are, actually in the.
Oh, the H one, but that's after that HT, after the, into that. Do I have to do that in stage like that? or-
Because you gotta come for day only pay.
Yeah, right, okay, yeah.
That's what I.
I don't know why Eldridge didn't have Eldridge place.
Yeah, okay, I don't know, I haven't decided which one.
So, okay.
There's some quantities.
We also said, oh, yes. It is still in.
Okay, so I have to,
So you're required to.
so I have to change.
Financially drawn a 1 year. So we had to do, we did.
But they want to launch it
Typically, your surcharges will go away, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Not usually.
Rates down.
Yeah.
transfer. Why weren't they doing something 20 years?
Maybe say $250,000 a year, over 20 years, $250,000 a year for the future. But they spend every dime.
But I don't want to, just like I misquoted you on how much you're transferring this year. We're transferring this year.
From the electric.
Yep. So,
See, that's the whole basis of my question is, what can the electric department continue to afford to fund if we have to regenerate or rejuvenate our system?
so there will be studies done if we have to do loans, same as we did. Look at everything.
I'm looking up
Some of those places will say.
for the future.
You got questions, I do.
Generate enough money to support the project.
Where are you going this summer? It's your
So,
big move.
but you also have to remember.
My brother Buddy in here. I'm not staying around. Big old deal, take it down to Arizona in the winter. He told me that, and I bet he will. He just sold 5 quarters of land. He's with a family partnership. His brother-in-law, Rocky, was.
What's that?
Rocky Missouri. They got that big old grain bins and big shops right off the interstate. That's Missouri. Rocky owns sections in South Dakota. He owns 3 sections in what he bought wheat land in western Kansas. He's got 3 sections. He's got,
You might have to say,
Buddy
how
said
we
he's
can't
got
afford to do this.
8 or 10 sections. And Rocky's my age, he's 71. I said, is Rock gonna slow down? We're selling 5 quarters now, so we're just slowing down.
Son put me in as well.
I know, yeah. I know.
Maybe I can upgrade.
That's what him and Rocky, my brother Rocky, Rocky's a big farmer too. Rocky probably owns farms, 20 operators. He's a little brother.
That's a lot of land.
He gets South Africans every year. Oh, sure. Like Mike Calhoun does. He probably gets them from the same area.
It's called creative accounting.
Well, you got a lot of costs too. I mean, he pays for the air flights, everything getting them over here.
And then all the room.
And houses, them, feeds them all summer.
Yeah, you can't sleep.
There's lots of places.
Way up,
I'm not.
way up start.
I mean, when you hear the numbers. But we've got.
But they can have.
Just can't do everything, but.
We can't go back here.
Yeah, you bet, thank you.
Like you said, and you're 3 years out. That's what's fun. And, you know, transplants are on.
I'm gonna get counsel. These guys are all squirrely campaigning over there on that side of it.
Campaigning? I don't think you heard your gavel, Mr. Mayor.
I don't think Hockett heard it.
Joe, we're ready to go.
All right,
Jared, thank you.
we'll get after it.
Council, resuming with old business, there's one item for consideration. Item number 1, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move approval of ordinance number 10, 70 recreational trailers.
And to place on second reading? Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Schramm, with the motion to approve and place on second reading for passage and approval ordinance 1070, that motion was seconded by Councilman Clunt. Floor is open to comments or questions. Councilman Schramm, the floor is yours if you'd like to start. Councilman Clunt? Any other
Mr. Mayor,
comment?
it says in there 72 consecutive hours. I did talk to a retired judge. He actually said 72 consecutive hours means they don't leave it. If they leave for half hour or an hour, come back, their time has to start over.
It's interesting.
So, my feelings with that, this ordinance is junk as far as enforcing.
Council, any other comments?
I don't, I mean, what do you do? I mean, what's the retired judge's opinion then? I mean, what do
He
you
said
do?
if it was, for instance, if he was brought to him for a
Yeah.
trial or whatever, he'd have to throw it out. Unless you have proof of somebody watching them for 72 consecutive hours.
You're talking about physically occupying the RV for 72 straight hours
Exactly.
without leaving?
Yes.
Not that it's set up for
Doesn't matter.
domesticated living or whatever the term is.
Consecutive means continuous. And every judge and an
This is
attorney or
council's
whatever,
discussion.
they can sit there and fight back and forth over something like that. I
Okay.
just think that it's something that needs to be taken out. I mean, actually, the old ordinance, if you just took the tail end, what was the old one? I don't even see it on here.
I have it, it's in the packet.
The old ordinance?
Council, one at a time.
Occasional use may be allowed. Take that part out of it.
It is out.
On the new, but on the old.
Well,
Any other comments or questions before rebuttal?
Sorry, I've been cross-talking, but.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, what I think Councilman Sprinkle possibly is trying to say is we don't need the changes that are proposed to the new ordinance but if it was left in there, occasional use may be allowed. That was in the old one. I'm just so unclear on where you're at and where you're going and.
On the old one, it had
Crosstalk,
the first
gentlemen.
part of it, and then it had occasional use may be allowed. Take that part out of it.
And leave,
Simplify it.
leave the first part in.
Right.
Yep.
Other comments or questions that would like the floor?
On
Councilman Clunt.
the ordinance, the copy that I have, occasional use may be allowed is taken out.
On the new one.
No crosstalk.
Yes, on the new one, it's right here.
Right. But you put in there 72 consecutive hours.
Gentlemen, point of order. When it's your turn to talk, you have a chance to talk. Councilman Clunt has the floor.
I mean, that's what I'm getting at, is it said the occasional use may be allowed is crossed off, meaning it's not in the new ordinance.
Councilman Schuyler.
Councilman Sprinkle is also saying just get rid of all the new wordage.
Oh,
All the highlighted needs to be gone and strike the occasional use.
Exactly.
Rebuttal. Councilman Schramm, you have the motion. I'll allow you rebuttal here after
thank
this
you.
discussion.
I thought that since we addressed this at the first reading that, okay, so the reason, and I'm kind of responsible for this change in wording here, because if Grandpa has a motor home sitting in his yard, and the grandkids come from out of town, and they want to sleep in that on the weekend that they're here, if we take out all the yellow stuff that we're adding, then Grandpa has to say, no, we can't sleep in the motor home tonight. That's the only reason for this. Okay? It says, the new ordinance would say recreational vehicles shall not be used for living, sleeping, or housekeeping purposes. Now, with all due respect to your retired judge, if he goes to the grocery store, that doesn't start his time over because he left his housekeeping purposes. Okay? When parked or stored on a residential lot or any location not approved for such use. Then we added, provided, however, they may be used for said purpose of a recreational vehicle for not more than 72 consecutive hours in a month, or for more than 72 consecutive hours, but more than 14 days, they may be used after you buy a permit to do so for up to 14 days. Those are the things that we put into this so that people could enjoy their recreational vehicle if they wanted to. And then it has the stipulations that you can only do that once a year, okay? In any calendar year for any same family. So I think we address what you're talking about, and if you're using it for housekeeping purposes, then that's not allowed. Okay?
Councilman Clunt is the seconder. You have rebuttal. The floor is yours.
I mean, I guess we've sent this back to ordinance 3-4 times. I felt that this kind of appeased everybody across town, whether it doesn't allow you to live in them. Short time frame of 72 hours or 14-day with a permit. I mean, I see no good, or I don't see any change going back to the ordinance committee and rewriting it again. I think we're to a point where we need to have our vote, and some of us don't want it, and some of us do want you to be able to stay in a camper with a permit. I think that's where we're at. I don't know what we would change going back to them. I mean, we keep rewriting it with, it is what it is. You either have a permit or you don't. And that's where we're at right now, is we need to vote on it.
Councilman Sprinkle, the floor is yours.
Brad, to answer your question. Okay. Grandpa letting his grandkids or whatever stay in his camper. How many instances we had that you've been known of in the past that they've done that or haven't done it?
Well,
There's no
I
questions.
can name several.
It's your floor. No questions.
no questions?
This-
Oh, he asked me a question.
I know, but that's crosstalk. You have the floor to compel the rest of the,
That's, I know it's been in the past. I've seen it many times, and it states in there, not on the street. How you gonna know if there's somebody in there, even though it's parked on the street? They don't wanna answer the door. How you gonna know?
Councilman Clay, floor is yours.
So I understand the provision of allowing people to stay in it. I don't know if I was in violation of city ordinance or not, but when my son graduated high school, we parked the camper in our back alley and my nephew stayed in it for the weekend.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
You know, it happened. I understand why we feel there should be allowances to possibly let that do. And also I feel we all at these tables agree on what we don't want to happen. And we got to make sure that's enforceable and it stops happening. How we do that, don't know. I agree. Sending it back to ordinance committee's not gonna probably solve anything.
Councilman Schuyler? He concedes his time. Councilman Hockett?
Thank you. Where I'm at on this issue, Ron, I hear exactly what you're saying. But not unlike every ordinance we have, a lot of them are enforceable because they are brought to the attention of law enforcement or somebody else. Not that we are patrolling for that particular ordinance with our people, but it naturally comes to light, it seems like, when there's a problem. And if I buy a $100,000 motor home and I put it by my house there, off the street on Sunset, and we have a graduation in the winter, one of the Hockett's, that'll be a while now. But anyway, it should be my right to have families stay there for a weekend. Not live there, stay there for a weekend. Just like Jeremy's, your nephew stayed there. We have to allow that. Because it's their capital investment. And what are we trying to do as a city? We want to try to help accommodate these people as much as we can. We don't want them living on the street, no. Defecating on the street, no. But stay periodically in a purchased camper or home. To me, it's a logical way to do it. We can't, whole scale, throw that out the window. So I like the ordinance, and I'm like Austin, sending it back. I thought about if we could send it back, tweak this, tweak that, what can we do? Well, I think it's time to vote on what we have. The second reading, we've got a motion and a second.
Okay. That concludes first round of discussion and rebuttal.
I don't get to answer his question.
You passed the first time and you have one rebuttal and we're moving on. At this point, I'm going to call the question. The question is approving second reading for passage and approval of ordinance 1070 recreational trailers. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Clunt?
Yes.
Councilman Hockett?
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle?
No.
Councilman Schuyler?
Nay.
Nay?
Nay.
Councilman Clay?
No.
Councilman Schramm?
Aye.
This ordinance, second reading for passage and approval will die with a lack of a majority on a 3-3 vote. Councilman?
The mayor casts a vote
Cannot.
and a tie, I thought.
Cannot. I cannot vote on financial decisions with the city of Winter, and I cannot vote on ordinances. This is a council decision only. That's why I refuse to give input on this. This had to be your decision. Without a majority, second reading for passage and approval fails. 3-3.
So now it's okay to sleep in your camper because of occasional use may be allowed.
We do
And
revert.
it's okay for the guy that, on 6th Street, to have his camper skirted.
To clarify,
Occasional use may be allowed.
once second reading fails, we revert back to the ordinance that is on the book, and that is the ordinance that is enforceable. That is the,
Occasional use may be allowed.
as council, you are allowed to bring another option. All right, hold on.
Is this the current ordinance?
I'd like to hear what the current.
Me too.
ordinance is.
No, this is not the current ordinance. According to South Dakota statutes 9-8-10, recording of votes by council members, number of votes required for action. A roll call vote shall be taken upon the passage of all ordinances and upon any proposal to expend or appropriate money, and in all other cases at the request of any member. All votes shall be entered into the minutes of the proceedings. The majority vote of the aldermen shall be necessary to pass the ordinance or proposal which expands or appropriates money, and the mayor may not break a tie on an ordinance or proposal to expend or appropriate money. The mayor may break a tie on all other ordinances or proposals. A two-thirds vote of the aldermen is required to sell any property. I do have the right, I'm sorry, I had been advised at that point otherwise. As mayor, I cast the vote as aye to place on second reading for passage and approval ordinance 1070 recreational vehicles, breaking the tie, making it a 4-3 vote.
You said yes?
Aye.
Aye, yes.
Yes. That concludes old business. We'll move on to new business. Item number 1, council, do you have a motion? Item 1.
Item 1, I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, I would want to approve to adjust the wages of Mitch Miller in the police department to $24 an hour for becoming a South Dakota law enforcement certified, and years of specialized instructor certification.
Is there a second to this
I'll
motion?
second that.
Councilman
What
Schuyler?
amount Did you say, please?
$24 even.
That's not what mine.
It was a
It's
misprint.
changed.
This
Brad.
came from personnel. They're amending the ordinance. Councilman Schuyler with the motion, Councilman Sprinkle with the second. The floor is open to comment or question. Councilman Schuyler as motioner. Floor is yours.
This is a part-time law enforcement officer. Maybe Justin, would you want to speak to it?
Point of information.
Yeah.
Inexact, because we're talking about wages.
Wages are public, it's about the individual employee that you would have to go into exec.
What's that?
Wages are public, individual employee is exec.
Yeah, but I think the information they're asking about would be in direct relation to the individual employee and why we came to that, so that's why I would say exact.
Declining point of information. Councilman Sprinkle, floor is yours. Any other comments or questions, council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to go in executive session.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Councilman Clay with a motion to go into executive session per SDCL 1-25 subsection 1, right? -2 subsection 1. All in favor of entering executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
So you just paused it,
I haven't done anything with it yet.
Turn it off.
then we just restart the second half.
You'll have to go back over and start again, another.